Hey, Sarah, you're here. We were just talking about you.
Hi.
How are things?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. How's It's cold today. It's like 17 degrees in Hong Kong in October. This is like the first.
Hello,
Hey, Graham, long time no
how
see.
are you? Yeah,
Pretty
been
good,
a
pretty
bit.
good. You still in Mexico?
I just moved here last week.
Okay, so you're back in Mexico.
Yep. I just got the apartment keys yesterday,
Ah, okay, okay,
but
okay. You're
I
enjoying
was
it.
in
How's
Toronto
your
for the summer.
Spanish?
No, not great. Getting better, getting better. Let's just say that.
O- Okay, no, so it was great to see you. So yeah, no, I think we have a crowd here. I think we can start. Yeah, I think we have a number of people now. So well, first of all, really thanks for coming. Thanks for joining me on this live stream about a project that I have been working on for quite some time. This is an idea that came to me, or I saw developing for about 3 years now. When I started collecting the works, I saw a social trend that was kind of like a forming up, not only on art, but I saw a lot of, especially like documentaries, books, magazines. They were not necessarily coining it as post-internet, but there was kind of like a phenomena about how the internet was evolving and how different the internet is now as it was before. Uh, and I think for us was the early 2000s. The internet changed at one point, and suddenly you start seeing that being translated or transcending into art expressions. I mean, in this case, is painting, but you see literature, you see film, especially. And so that was quite interesting, and I decided like I mean probably people that are familiar with my collection, they do know that I kind of like observe a particular like a social trend, and I start like searching for works that narrate that story, and then I realized that there were artists, and as you can see, it's quite varied. They were really riding into that wave. They were capturing or they were expressing what was going on, especially on the internet. So after many discussions, especially with Sam Height, I don't know if she said that she was to Dalian, but she's in Barcelona, so it's like 1 a.m. for her. Uh, but after discussing with her extensively, we said like I think we have something for a show. And then I decided to start looking together. Then I got Sarah, who decided to join me on the project, and then we got it on. And eventually, I think it comes to a project that I'm quite happy about. I think it was uh, I don't necessarily find anybody that is contextualizing post. Everybody's talking about post-internet, but I haven't seen anybody really contextualizing it in this way. And I mean, Ravenwood, she was telling me that she's about to become an art teacher. So you do let me know because I do
Yeah.
see, I find that reference. I do find that reference about the internet that has changed. For me, one of the catalysts certainly was Cambridge Analytica. That I think that was the moment where I decided I need to do that show. When the scandal about Cambridge Analytica came about, and you see that the how the possibilities and the capacity of the internet today being so intelligent, it got me concerned, and then it realized like I think we need to start creating some sort of like I would say like an awareness of how society is changing, and we need to be able because this internet is going to become far more intelligent. It's going to be far more exploited. So we need to be we need to be very self-aware of where things are heading in order to be able to stay sane, if I can put it that way. So I think for me, Cambridge Analytica was kind of like the catalyst. So yeah, let me walk you through the story. So I'm going to tell you pretty much the story through the works, and and then after that we open for a little Q and A. As you know, I like to keep my my presentation is very interactive because I really want to stimulate dialogue. I want people to tell me if they agree, disagree, and I want my objective of this talk is for the attendees to think. I want to leave you with a thought process. I want you to go out and, even if you agree or disagree, but to think that the internet has changed the world for the good or for the better. I don't know, but it's certainly, the internet is a revolution. It was like industrial revolution or the analog revolution, the first computers. That is ubiquitous. It's everywhere, and it's part of our lives. We cannot detach it, so we need to be quite aware of it. So yeah, so let me start with pretty much with the beginning. Post-internet, for me, this idea started about, as I said, about a few years, 3-4 years ago. Particularly with the catalyst for me was Cambridge Analytica, and not only that one was, I mean, certainly the scope of Cambridge Analytica, which I found it pretty alarming, but also how it was downplayed by the media. Again, I don't want to sound like conspiracy theorist of anything, but I found it quite interesting because always at that time was always privacy. When people were questioning Facebook, was always privacy was about like the front end privacy, like the user telling like I click here, I click there, and so on. And I was like, no, that cannot be. These companies are making millions of dollars, and it's certainly not through advertising. It's absolutely impossible. The math doesn't add up, right? Then when I saw that the case of Cambridge Analytica, and then I said like you can actually download your information. So I went there. I go onto Facebook, download the data. I had Facebook at that time, and when you open the package, I realized that there were about 6 or 7 pages of people that bought my data. And when they bought my data, they buy everything. They buy your messages, your photos, your everything that you post on Facebook is sold. They don't necessarily sell it as a single package, but like as a single account. But they sell everything, right? Like, so you have like a company, a data broker that tell you I need data, people in Hong Kong for this age, etc. So they dump absolutely everything. And then when you start looking at the terms and conditions of Facebook, you realize that this is different from like a bank, because when you give money to a bank, the money is always a liability to the bank. This is the reason why they are so limited. But with data, it's different. When you post information on Facebook and social media, that information belongs to them. So it's their assets, so they can do anything they want. And that, for example, and when I started seeing, for me, when I saw what happened with Cambridge Analytica, and then when I realized like it was pretty downplayed by the media, I was like, the world is changing. This is different. Then, and when I started looking at the artworks, I saw that I was not the only one. That I saw expressions that were addressing that. Then, when I started having my discussions with different artists and so on, and in this case is Sam, which is the first work that we have here. Yeah. This is a work that it took us. I don't know if Sam. I don't know if she's dialing in. Maybe she's on YouTube. It took us to come up with this photo. It took us about 4 or 5 months, pretty much, to put the bar on the eyes of the photo. But because when I was thinking, I said, like, look, for me, it's clear that the world changed post 9/11, right? And this is a work, the one that is subsequent to this one, the Abdullah, the one with the explosion. This is a work that we found with a friend of mine, Zhao Kun, the owner of the Kun Museum in Beijing. We found this work in Art Basel about 4 or 5 years ago, and we found it quite striking, right? It was the whole symbolism. At that time, I think it was, still Afghanistan was still going on, and there was the justification. Abdullah is a Muslim. He's Muslim living in Australia. People that are familiar with Australia, they do know that, similar to United States, they have a lot of like racial tensions. And Abdullah is trying to depict that. And I found that work when I was discussing that with Kun when we went to the gallery. And actually, we met Abdul. He was at Art Basel at the time. We discussed with him. we discussed about this work, and we saw that, that after 9/11, that there were like a lot of justifications to start attacking and framing certain groups of people as their enemies, and there was also a sense of exploitation, which I found that quite interesting. So I started correlating those two topics, and I saw like, the world really changed after 9/11. Indeed, I mean, respect of everybody, it's a tragedy. I mean, terrorism is not tons of people lost their lives, not only on this tragedy, but also at the subsequent ones, because this is the story that is often neglected, is the stories of the people that are at the losing end. In this case, of the people in Afghanistan. I mean, it outnumbers the number of people that died in the subsequent military events than in 9/11. Again, all lives matter, and I'm really sorry about that. But back to the story I saw that relationship, and when I was talking to someone, said like, I want to start the show with a work about 9/11. Then we decided to put this work, and then we start playing because she's a photographer, and she started playing with Photoshop and so on. And I want to make a work that captures everything. So this work is a collaboration. We did it together. So we decided to do it as an NFT because we're kind of like trying to, I don't know, say play a joke or this is another topic, but we will try to be cynical about the whole NFT market. Because just to do a quick parenthesis, we wanted to stress that NFTs or any product is all about the expression and it's never about the medium, right? So when we decided to do this photo, we put a lot of thought process about the work. So we found this photo on the internet. It was some random photo. And we actually found quite several photos, and we really struggled and tried to remove that sense of identity, because for me, that was the key message. The internet, especially post 9/11, there has been this trade-off between your personal identity and the social benefit. And I can see that, for example, happening also in China today with especially like the situation that is happening in Hong Kong. That trade-off is far more evident. That this detachment, like please trade off your individuality for sort of like a social safety. I mean, I saw it also with COVID, with all the different traces apps and so on that happened. Not only it happened everywhere in the world, from Europe to China to Asia to United States. That trade-off. So we decided to design this work with try to resemble that, and eventually we found this stock image. We found this person that was relatively young. We love the fact that he was young at that age, because this person right now should be he was about 16. He should be about coming to his 40s, so he should be pretty aware of what is going on. We found this work when we found the work, it was the photo, and we found the bar. Eventually, we were discussing about putting a black bar or like a pixelated, which is a bit more modern today. It's a bit more contemporary using pixels, but I think the bar is a bit more established. Also, I was watching a lot of at the time when I was researching, I was watching documentaries by Adam Curtis, especially hypernormalization. If you have the time to watch it, that is quite key. When I saw it, I said like, no, let's use the bar, because I think it's a bit far more symbolic. And it's quite interesting because the issue of identity, I do see it a lot on current millennial expressions. You see Adrian Guinea or Adriana Oliver, they are removing the face of the artist completely, they're doing figurative works, but this without face, or the face is blurred. There's so many artists, a lot of like millennial work, any work that is produced pretty much after 2010 that is figurative, it normally has no face. And later we're going to talk about that when we see that one of the Mac works. And the expressions today clearly are questioning identity. That identity is becoming like a commodity. I mean, you see it today also with Instagram. People, as Instagram has matured, all the social TikTok and so on, people do have two lives. It's your personal life and your digital life. And for me, like I'm a boomer. I grew up in a generation that when I was a kid, you have to kind of like interact with people. The internet generation is very different. Everything they do it digitally. And I was actually very surprised to see like they are like selling courses about how to interact socially. Like a social interaction has become a skill to learn. And this is actually like the effects of the internet. The internet is really trying to strip us out of that our soul and identity. And I found that quite interesting. Then this is actually how I decided to start with the exhibition. So I think this work for me is very important. It's very symbolic, and I think it gives the start to absolutely everything. It's the moment where you have that detachment, where there was the trade-off, and what stimulated that trade-off, what fomented that trade-off, that exploit was certainly the military intervention that followed 9/11 and the attack on Muslims or the framing. I won't say the attack, but the framing of the Muslim generation and so on, which Abdullah captures quite beautifully here. I think his work is he took a photo of an explosion of one of the military interventions. I think it was Afghanistan or Iraq. I cannot remember. And then he put this image on front, and for me, it's really powerful. And I like artists that use kind of like a very simple elements to convey something so powerful. I love this work. This is in the Kun Museum in Beijing, and with Kun, we spent a lot of time thinking about this work when we decided to acquire it, and we have been following Abdullah since. He's in my opinion, one artist to watch for the future. Like he's alongside Kader Atia and so many artists that are really addressing important matters that a lot of people don't want to be exposed to. So I found these two works extremely important, and we thought like the show needs to open with this one. We need to start telling this story. And I was discussing with Abdul yesterday about it. Like, yes, I will help you to tell that narrative. Then the second section is a bit different. So these three works, which is by a Chinese artist, Sean Wei, and the other two by Mak Yin Tung Tu from Hong Kong. They express what internet has become today. This work, so the first one by Sean Wei is super interesting, right? I acquired this work the day that Bitcoin broke for the second time the 20,000 to never see it again. I was at the office. And of course, you're looking at Bitcoin, you're looking at all the different assets, and we saw that Bitcoin went up and, okay, good. And then he broke it, right? For me, Bitcoin is a social construct. It's like a religion, right? It has value because people think it has value, not because it has intrinsic use in itself. But that is not necessarily bad. When I was thinking about it, when it broke that level, it said like there's a social movement that is about to change things, right? Because there's a belief in the system, like any religion, that there's such a strong belief socially that is going to overwhelm the established. So when I saw this work, where you see the numbers like the figures behind, which it represents for me like the established financial system, and you have this kind of like a slime that is really anime, comes certainly from video games, very millennial expression. I found that quite interesting, especially when because these are artists that they grew up watching Akira and anime and playing video games and so on. And he's clearly telling me that there's a new construct that is wrapping up the established. And for me, that breaking Bitcoin was like a new catalyst. And I'm like, okay, that is important, and I'm going to acquire that work. And that is the reason why I bought it. I absolutely love it. Every time I see it, it reminds me that the world has changed, that it's different, that we live in a totally brand new world with brand new, very different social conceptions, which was the same thing in the 80s and 70s and 60s. Each generation makes its own social construct and lives by it. And I think this generation is very strong. The strong belief in technology is is there. Is technology today has become is almost a techno religion, if you can put it that way. So I decided to acquire. Yesterday I put a post. I found that I was kind of like I usually do this post when I'm like reading something or thinking something and I need to let it out. And I post something that it says invisible with a Wi-Fi. And when I posted that, what I was trying to say is that there's a force that is overwhelming us, and we cannot see it, and we cannot control it. We cannot. We are engulfed in it, and that is a force that we cannot see at all. And it's almost like a religion. For anybody that is religion, you will understand that your faith is something that you cannot touch. It's intangible, but it's overwhelming. And for me, the internet has become something like that. And these beliefs, like Bitcoin and that believe in decentralized finance and etc. And many other forms, and sharing economy and so on, has become this social construct that is overwhelming. And a lot of people have faith. I mean, you look at finance, you look at a lot of companies like Uber and Amazon, companies that are actually not profitable at all, Lyft, all the unicorns, and they have been unprofitable for generations. And but the stock price continued to go up. So it's no longer that fundamental that as long as you make money, the company is solid. No, that is out of the question. These companies are technically bankrupt, but people are still pouring money into it because people believe that they're going to change the world in the future, which they have. I think Uber has changed transportation and so on. So that there's a change. That the world start believing in things that are very different than they were before the 2000s. The world has changed in beliefs, and this work for me captures that quite well. Then we have the works by Mac, which is personally one of my favorite artists. I think she's a gifted mind, and her works are extremely simple, extremely powerful. So she takes works. Clearly, millennial artist, grew up in the video games. These are videos of The Sims. I think I have pretty much on every exhibition that I have done. This is my third exhibition. I have shown works by Mac because she's just brilliant. So her works to give you a summary, her works. She plays video games, and she takes an image of she's playing The Sims, right? She enjoys that work, and she captures a frame of that video. But what is important is that she's constructing The Sims according to her own ego, if you can put it that way. It's like her perfect world, right? In The Sims, when you play video games, when you construct something in video games, it's like your perfect ideal world. It's colorful, it's rosy. Nobody comes to nag you. If there's a dog, the dog barks and does as you please. The world is absolutely beautiful and perfect, right? Because it's as egocentric as it can be. But then she came up with this fantastic idea. And then she said, like, look, what happens if I take the world that is like my ideal, beautiful world that I created, and I want to translate it into the real world. So let's do it like this, right? And she's like, okay, I can see that for those familiar with in China or Asia, there's a company called Taobao, which is owned by Jack Ma, which is the Chinese Alibaba, the Chinese Amazon, sorry. And pretty much you can hire anybody to do anything, right? So she's like, okay, what if I hire 3 people to paint the painting? So I give them very little instructions, and each person will paint one panel, right? And let's see how it comes up. Like let's see. Like maybe it comes well, and maybe it comes absolutely off, and so on. And what she's trying to tell you is that when you live in your own reality, and this is something that I want, like people we should be to think about, especially the world of influencers and social media, because there's a sense of egocentrism that people are conflicting the moment you take that egocentrism outside the real world, because you have to interact with other people, and people have different interests. So you have these frictions, right? And this is the world is about that friction. So she takes the world, put it to the real world, give it to the 3 people. Then they send it back, and of course, it is absolutely mismatched. Nothing is aligned. Everything is off. The colors are out. And for me, that is absolutely brilliant. So this work has a story because, so she started doing this work, those expressions like the different panels, but this one was quite extreme because when the work came up and I saw it at the gallery, it came out one of the panels came actually quite short. So the guy actually took even the wrong measurement. And we found that so absolutely hilarious. She was she was not happy with it. She actually asked the guy to do the frame again. And the show was showed at a fair in Hong Kong called Unscheduled. Excuse me. And it was shown as the three right panels. And when I saw it, I told Mac, no, Mac, if I love the work, I like it with the mismatched panel. And she's like, yeah, but I don't like it. It looks like it doesn't look nice. So like, Mac, that's not the point. The point, at least for me, is to see the mismatch. This is the friction with reality. And so if I want to buy the work, I want to buy it with the mismatch. So she was not really happy. And then I was talking to the gallerist at that time with Willem. And I said, so Mac left and then the fair closed. And I was there because he was closing down. And I'm like, hey, do you have the short panel here? Because the work was up in the wall. And he's like, yeah, I have it here. Like, let's put it up and let's see how people react, right? So we decided, okay, let's do it. So we took the frame out, and then we put it up, and we left it overnight for the next day. So the next day, I went up, and of course, a lot of people were coming, were very curious to see, like, this mismatch works. So we called Mac, said, like, Mac, you have to come here to see the reaction, because people, I think, they're getting it. Like, they're understanding that this mismatch. And of course, I mean, she's pretty successful. She's today, she's one of the most renowned artists in Hong Kong. And she's one for the future because conceptually, she's addressing this. It's very powerful, that message. And she do it very playfully. And she laughs about it. She's like, okay, this is funny, but I think when you think cynically, it's not funny at all. Is people are forgetting that to socialize, you need to do that compromise with that social friction is a natural compromise, and people are forgetting that. I mean, you have issues of we're talking about later, like social anxiety and so on, are coming out of people are forgetting how to, or are getting detached from forgetting how to interact socially. That in social interaction is a compromise. So I found that work extremely powerful. And then we find this one, which this work is. I don't know. This work for me is everything. So this is like Mac right now from this series, like the triptych series. I think she's doing a third. She's on her third period, if I can call it like that. So the first one is from the first one that you see no human. She's actually just making images, and on her second wave, if I can call it, she started putting herself onto the works, right? And this is the image that you find in the center. And what I like about this work is all the different details. So the mirror for me is absolutely key, right? So you see you see the art, the person looking herself in the mirror, which, I mean, for anybody that is studying art history, people always use that mirror as a reflection of identity. And then you see the other self walking away. And I'm like, boom, this is like, wow. Besides the symbolism of red, because it was painted during a period where Hong Kong was going through an identity transition, what is going now. So it was very conflicting. It's a work that is very emotional. It's very powerful. This work has a super funny story. This work actually made it to an article in ArtNet. That was in Art Basel. It was in Art Basel this year in Hong Kong. And I mean, I received the works in PDF, and I talked to the gallery. I said, like, I'm super interested. I want to buy the work and so on. And they had a body of works by Mac, and they were showing it. They were rotating it every day. And they wanted to keep this one for the last day. And I'm like, okay, fine. Like, because this, in my opinion, is the most powerful work by this series that Mac did. And at the time, I was already talking to an artist, to a journalist in ArtNet, and I told her, like, look, on Sunday, there's going to release this work that I acquired, and I think it's very powerful. I'm more than happy to show you the work, and you can come with me, and I will explain it to you, and so on. And she's like, okay, great. So I might take one or two photos, and I'm like, okay, perfect. Then come Sunday, and then when she meant one or two photos, she meant bringing a whole camera crew, right? So it was the whole, I think it was from our Basel camera crew. So it was the people from public relations. It was like, I don't know, like a 10 people entourage to take photos of me explaining this work. And when you see that all the amount of people like taking photos of me, like sit here, stand here, place here, and so on, and they ask you to start explaining the pictures. I start explaining it to Vivian, to the journalist, and to the people in our Basel. Of course, a crowd start gathering, right? Because people say like, who is this guy, and why is like so many cameras on him? And I mean, there were like about 50, 60 people just listening to me explaining this work, and the camera is going on. And then I finished my 5-minute introduction of the work. And something that I found quite beautiful as I leave, and everybody was leaving. Normally in our Basel, you have the different tours. And then there was a tour that was listening to me. Yeah, there was the guide was there. And as I leave, the guide stays with the tour and pretty much start repeating what I was saying. And she will start presenting the work to the tour. And that told me like that, first of all, the message resonated. And secondly, the work is important, is meaningful. This is one of my most beloved works. I think is the symbolism is I found it extremely powerful, from the color, from the image, from absolutely everything. And also a funny story. Mac currently has an exhibition at the Art Gallery on her third wave, where what she's doing is the same trick tip, but now she's adding works like previous works into the new works, like her favorite works, she's adding them in. And she has this huge red piece where this work is inside that work. So I found that super funny. She's evolving. She's letting that thought kind of like continue and evolve.
Did she paint this one herself, or did she also farm these ones out?
Sorry?
Did she paint these three herself, or did she do it like the last one where she gave instructions to somebody else?
No, interesting. Mac is a conceptual artist. She doesn't paint. She always hires people, because I think if she paints, then the symbolism of the social mismatch is gone, because she'll try to paint it quite perfectly. But she's still hiring people. She hires random people. It's not always the same people. She always hires. She doesn't necessarily plan. She's trying to bring chaos and randomness into the work. It's intentional, which I think cool, that's the reason I found it very brilliant. Mm-hmm. So I found the work, and I absolutely love it. It's one of my personal favorites, and it's in the warehouse. I haven't unpacked it because at the moment I'm showing another work, but yeah, it's one of my personal favorites. And so that is Mac. And now let's go to the second part of the exhibition,
Right.
which this one is more about like the side effects of the post-internet. And I think we have three works. And my message on this second session was to convey like how we are feeling, like how we as people, or how I feel when I think about the internet today, right? And the first work is by a photographer, Stephanie Teng. We talked about this work. She's a phenomenal photographer. She's extremely emotional. She has this intensity. Even on her architectural photos, she manages light so well. She adds a lot of emotion into her photos. And she did these photos, this work during the early days of COVID, right, when there was lockdowns and that anxiety that was creating, and of course she had to be social distancing, to be confined, and she said like I'm feeling repressed, and I'm like, okay, I found that quite interesting, because I mean, if you look at the newspapers today, it's all about this mental health and anxiety and so on. And I found that interesting that you're feeling that way. And of course, then people are like resorting more into the internet, getting far more addicted or absorbed to the internet. And I found this work was really depicting that kind of like what is happening in your real life, that you have your internet life is one, but what happens in your bedroom is something totally different. And and that word hit me right away. And it was on an exhibition. I'm like, Steph, bring it on. It's really powerful. Actually, I intended to finish. This was my finishing work. I intended to initially, when I was writing post internet, I wanted to finish with this work, but I actually had another series of works, but eventually didn't make the cut. I wanted to show these beautiful works by Diana Oliver, but eventually I didn't manage to get the photos because she's moving houses and studios and so on. So I had to postpone that. So I had to reorganize everything. And then eventually I thought, and then Sarah is still with us. So with Sarah, we thought like, when we discussed it with Sarah, like, no, you know what? I think let's put it like in the middle. I think it's important to people to think about how life is now, that people there's a duality in living your digital life and your real life, and your real life has all these social anxieties and those inner anxieties. And I think it's important to tell the story that artists are feeling that and are expressing that that people are not alone in their mental struggles. Like, I mean, she's quite well, but I mean, she's just expressing it. But she's feeling anxious, and when she's alone, she feels that sense of anxiety. And she took that beautiful photo. I found it really powerful. So and she's trying to get out. So you have the curtain. She's trying to get out, but she can't. And she's like she's actually like, you see, that is a mirror in a bedroom, but because of the darkness, makes it very private. So I found the work really very powerful. So I decided to acquire it because I think the symbolism was powerful, and the message. Again, it's a message that needs to be told, and I wish it resonates with people. Then the second work that follows is by Sam Hyde, which is quite a recurrent in my collection. I love her works because she's very cheeky, and this work has no need for explanation, right? She's very cynical, right? She's very cynical. But people that know her, she's very cynical. She's extremely fun to talk to. And I found that like you capture it so well, right? It's all these old people, which are eventually politicians and so on. And she just puts it like that, like panic. I just love the work to a point that in my studio I have a corner, right? So this work is in the top, and next to it I have Yue Minjun, which is one of the main artists in Chinese political pop and cynical realism. And when you see these two works together, they go so well. Like, I mean, this is like the only work that I haven't really moved much or lately, because they talk to each other. It's like every time I see these two works, it's like these works are like laughing at each other. Like, how cynical, because you have to. It's very healthy to add a little bit of cynicism into your life. It will keep you in good spirits. And this work for me is beautiful. It's just like every time I see it, I have it in my studio, and every time I see it, I'm like, yeah, this is the world today. Panic, and just wait for what is to come, because as long as politicians have a monetary interest rather than a social interest, you should panic. Then this work, again, I found it super interesting. This was one of my late acquisitions. It was by a very young artist. She did her first show, and actually yesterday I went out to see her painting on the streets. I mean, Elaine is what, 22, and she painted. She's from Hong Kong. She's 22 years old, and she's finding like this beauty on all Hong Kong, right? Hong Kong, that is, and you look at her transition. Hong Kong is going through an identity transition at the moment, and she goes out there and she finds this beauty on like industrial areas of Hong Kong. She finds this hidden beauty on all these old buildings, right? Buildings that are all run down and so on, especially districts that are changing very rapidly. This is a district in Hong Kong called Sham Shui Po, that it used to be like the textile industrial area of Hong Kong. Now is fancy cafes. I bought a coffee because I went there. She was painting there yesterday now. And I went to visit her, and I mean, it was 70, so it's like a latte for like what, $12. So it's super fancy cafes, and a lot of people are moving there because the place has this charm, this all that of all Hong Kong, right? And when she put this work, when she actually what she does, she's putting this she's more on the architectonical expression, but when she painted this one, she decided to kind of like let it run down. She was to let it like unfinished, and it somewhat reminds me of the movie The Matrix, because you see the expression are like a more like digital in a way, because they're like a little squares. Her new works are far more digital. She actually liked that idea, and she's pushing it forward. So she wants to go. So she's painting, but painting more in a digital way, because it reminds me of a work that I have in my previous exhibition on urbanism, when I was talking about millennials on a I forgot Lucien Jean, that he's making all these lines like digitalizing the cities. The cities, she's also trying to do that. She's digitalizing the nostalgia, like, and this is how people are remembering now through Instagram and digital means and so on. And I found that quite interesting, that people are placing memory onto digital means, and which is not necessarily always perfect, right? It's always biased, and you have the algorithms and so on. And when I saw this work with the unfinishedness, that kind of like resonated with me. That told me like, I think that is important. I like that the symbolism of this work, and that is the reason why I decided to acquire. I found it very powerful in the way that is a nice reminder of how we remember, as I wrote it, and as we wrote it with Sarah, how we erode and preserve memory and nostalgia, which is always imperfect and blurred. And I mean, and if you guys, I mean, hopefully in the future, you guys come to Hong Kong, I strongly recommend you go to that neighborhood, because you will see the contrast. Or you can look at, I posted a photo when she was painting yesterday, and I love her. She's there. She's a girl. She's 22 years old. She comes in with the stencil, start like painting in the middle of the street, like, and a lot of people start coming, like, what is she doing? Why is she painting this old building, all forgotten building? And I found that she, in a sense, she's giving so much back to the city. Like I'm 22, I'm young, I have no idea who did this building, but I found so much beauty in it, and I want to remember it. I found that so beautiful. I'm a big believer. I'm a big supporter. But for me, I'll be a big supporter of Elaine for a long time, as long as she continues with that innocence on expression. I'm a big believer. She's one for the future, in my opinion, because conceptually, I think there's something in her that is important. I think for younger people to have appreciation of the past, of the physical past, I think is quite important. And then this is the last work by a Hong Kong artist called Xin Yuan. This work is interesting. I bought this. This actually was the first work that I bought. I never thought about this work. I actually love the city, the cyber composition of it. I bought this work not necessarily because I was thinking on a social context or an idea. I bought it initially because I just liked it. I like the how metallic it looks, and how cyber. It reminds me of Akira or Paprika, the animes. And as when I needed to reshuffle the works, I thought about this work, and I'm like, that is interesting, because it's pretty digital. Certainly has this digital, as I call it, cyber expression, and is capturing like a moment of giving the sense of calmness, right? Which is the reason I bought it, because in Hong Kong during the typhoon season and so on, it rains a lot, right? And that work it actually has a latitude and longitude, which is a spot in Hong Kong, and it's trying to resemble that. It was a day that it was raining like crazy during that, as it rained during typhoons here, and she was trying to capture that calmness, but in a very kind of like a digital way. And then I thought, when I was posting to it, I think I want to finish like in a more like a uplifting note, that is not always dark and so on. That there are artists that are feeling that the digital space can also give you a sound escape, and you can find that balance between what is outside and what is inside and what is in the digital world, but it's also what is outside in the real world. You can mix it together and make it express it as one and find some calmness and balance into it. And I found that quite powerful. I found that I think it resonates. I do like the way that it will end the work, and I love it. I like to see it. Currently, it's in my storage. I have my discovery with like because I need to use the space, maximize the space. So I hang. Also, it's the safest way to save to keep our work is hanging on a wall where nobody's going to touch it. So at the moment, it's hanging in my storage, in one of the walls in my storage, so it's pretty safe. And it's actually when I open the door of the storage, it's there. It's the first thing that I see. So it's a work in silk and it's painted by hand. But I think she used some sort of like a tools to make it more perfect because it has that digital perfectness, which I really like. And I don't know. That's it gave me that sense of soothing that things, even though we have panic on one side and politicians are going to keep pushing for self-interest, in the end, socially, nature and society, because society is part of nature, will counterbalance those opposing forces and eventually find some sort of like a zen onto everything. So yeah, that's the reason I bought it and I found it. I found that I want to keep it. So yeah, this is post-internet. I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, I would like to hear from you guys if you find it relevant or.
I was gonna say it's kind of. I've been meaning to do a show called After the Internet for years, and it's kind of funny. It's a very similar title to the one you just curated. So I haven't gotten around to actually doing it yet, but it's been in my notepad as a to-do title for a show for a long time. But this is a good.
No, more than happy. I'm more than happy. We exchanged notes. Actually, where's Sarah? Sarah's behind me. So, Sarah, I don't know because I really wanted to. I want to introduce Sarah. Sarah is half of everything that you see here is thanks to her, right? Sarah is someone that I didn't meet her. She met me. It was a super funny story how we met, and we met in a lift. And since then, I mean, it clicked. I like people that are so driven, had that, like, so passionate. And so we started talking since we met in the lift. I mean, it's in the lift. Like we were in an exhibition, and as I was leaving, she walked in and she's like, by the way, I'm Sarah. Nice to meet you. I have been following, etc., following you, etc. And she introduced herself like I'm a writer, and I really like what you do, and perhaps we can do something in the future, something along those lines. I mean, Elaine works the way there. That's how I remember it. And that kind of like that kept me thinking. And then we continued to talk about like floating ideas, and then eventually I told her like, hey, about a while ago, right, like probably 6 months ago or 7 months ago. And I told her like, hey, Sarah, I'm working on this exhibition, and I need help. I mean, I need help people to help me write it and so on. And I don't know, Sarah, like, I mean, I don't know, you can tell us your story, how you decided to get involved in post-internet.
Yeah, I guess kind of how you said it, which was really nice. Thank you for your kind words. I feel shy. But I think for me, it's just like anything new is exciting for me, like an opportunity to learn stuff. Like I feel like I got to do so much research in the process of just like writing this, like people who've done similar works before. Also like the fact that they're like all the artists are from like different places as well. I think that says something about like what they're creating and like their experiences too. That's kind of like my take.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate Sarah. Sarah wrote pretty much most of the. She wrote everything and the tone. I think we had extensive dialogues, and she was finding the right words, in a few sentences, and tried to convey it in a very powerful ways. So I really appreciate it because I think the pace, especially, that one really comes from Sarah, and the fact that it resonated with her, and she decided to be part of it, and also be part of that group that is telling this story. So yeah, no, really, Sarah, really thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm just actually gonna step out because I have a show starting in my gallery in 5 minutes here. So I'm just gonna go make sure that no one's getting lost in the lobby there. But that was
Sounds good.
Sure,
interesting.
sure.
Thank
Yeah.
See you guys.
Okay, no, thank you very much.
Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for coming.
Thank you very
So
much.
I don't know what you guys think.
I think it's very relevant today, like just from like a classroom perspective with like teaching kids, like we're trying to find like, especially this piece like resonates with the idea of trying to find like a balance and like an equilibrium of like use of technology within the classroom, but then where's the line and how much is like too much, and are they present in the moment and actually learning when they're connected all the time. So it
Yeah, that
it's
is
very
interesting.
relevant. Hmm.
Yes, because especially on COVID, right? COVID, we had this push towards online teaching, online working, work from home, and schooling from home, and so on. And I think that's going to have an effect in that particular. These should be the Gen Alphas, right? Or no, the iGens.
Yeah.
I cannot remember.
Well,
how they're
even
calling it.
after, right? Like we have, it's still, the COVID still exists and within the classroom,
Yes.
like they all have their own laptops now and they're all sitting in rows and they're distanced, and like, it's just a totally different climate that we're adjusting to.
And I think it's important to find a balance. I think to people to think that, I mean, the internet, as I said, it is something invisible. It outweighs us, and we need to find a balance to create to
Like find connection. Yeah.
live with it, because it's not going to go away. It's going to become far more powerful. So you either it overwhelms you, or you find a way to be aware. And I think the only way to do it is being very self-aware that of the potential of the internet, because the works of the reason I like the Abdullah the internet can get abused and exploited, and you see it now commercially, right? With the work with Mac, right?
Well, I think your first piece especially really made me think of like 9/11 was the last event where people didn't have like cell phones to take pictures.
Yes.
And so that photo that was taken would have been on a camera.
Yes, correct. It's actually
Which is like
I found that in the
interesting thinking about like identity. Yeah.
And that strips out identity. I just on that work initially we found another work with there was a little boy, right? And we of course we're trying to blur the photo of the boy, but the boy probably will be on the 20s. It's like no, I think the boy won't get it if he's on the 20s or early 20s, 50. He won't necessarily understand what it meant to grow after the influence of post-internet, right, or the political exploits. So that's the reason why we opted for that one, someone that was more on the 16, 17s, because the person probably should be, 38, close to 40s?
Yeah, late 30s,
The person is really understanding it, like he matured seeing these exploits, initially political, later commercial, and it's going to get worse. I was reading about Donald Trump's new venture, what do you call it? Call it Truth, right? I mean, this is Orson Welles. This is what's the name?
1984.
I forgot the name of the Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
The Citizen Kane in a digital way, and it's going
Everyone
to
is
be twisted and so on, or Murdoch. So I think we need to think that I don't. Bottom line, I really want people that attend this talk or to see the video on YouTube or going to play the repetition. What I want you is to make people think and create that sense of. I want to help people. I want this talk to help assist people on their self-awareness, to be like, okay, not to be afraid, but to say like, I can maneuver this. The world is changing. It's going to become more digital. It's either you need to be able to.
One thing that's really
it.
interesting is all of us in this room here, and these generations, we are one of the last generations to experience a childhood or some moment of life where internet wasn't ingrained in everyday behavior. And like the next few generations, they were all born, like I'm looking at my niece, and she was born like during COVID, and had seen her aunts and uncles and family members through a phone more than she has
Yeah.
in the physical
person.
world in the early days of her life. So she's being raised with the internet from her earliest memories. So that way of socialization that we're kind of comparing to the way that we used to socialize to the way that it has evolved and changed now because of the internet, we're the last group of people that are going to have that comparison. And then I think about the next generation, they might, like, my niece might talk about how she remembers, the way it was with just the internet on phones and laptops, and now we are in this new internet 5.0 or whatever it is.
Virtual reality.
It's it's such a rapid amount of change in such a short amount of time. It's really, really challenging to get your head around what parts are the beneficial parts and which parts are the detrimental parts, with losing certain social skills and things like that. There's obviously a ton of benefits, but you can also see just watching people talk or there's something that's missing in the way that a conversation,
even the way that like teenagers act in like high school is like different from when I was there, which really wasn't like that long ago, but it's like it's drastically different now. I don't know that it's bad, it's just like that social interaction isn't the same. It's all like based around like other things happening, like fights start because something happened the night before online. So there's all these other things like the teachers have to be aware of. But
and the sense of, for example, it's interesting that you mentioned about the fights and the kids having into arguments because something was posted the night before, and the concept of post-truth, right? There's so much twisted information and misinformation on the internet, especially with kids. The kids Photoshop a photo to make it look silly, and they post it online. That can ruin the
well, it can be dangerous too, right? Like there's like the idea of like consent and like people sending photos and then that going viral, and it just like the dynamic is totally different. But,
I think these exhibitions are really important just to kind of put a pin in this moment. Like, this is the conversation, this is the way it is right now in this specific moment in time. And, now we have this sort of documentation, little time capsule, that we can look back in generations. And I think if you fast forward a few hundred years and you start looking back on what today was, it will be kind of internet, post-internet is these the marker of a major social change that has taken place.
Yes, I fully agree. I absolutely agree, and this is that actually was my motivation on writing this show. The world is different. The world is changing. We cannot help it. The internet is going to shape. Like the word that reason why the Sean Way, that slime going over the established is new, is different. It's no bad or wrong. It's different. These social constructs are just
we're
different.
all adapting.
There was post-war, now there's post-internet.
Yes. So I think post-internet is
post-COVID
is an established movement, and artists are already painting it. And I think that if I condense it like in a wider picture, in terms of art history, I think for me is the sense of identity. For me was, for example, one thing that I study, I found that extremely intriguing, like how age regressed art expressions were a few years ago. It was all this cartoonish, childish, but it was everywhere. And I think there's what for me was telling me that you have all the millennials adulting, but there's a sense of the necessity to age regress, right? Is the need to cope because the world is far more difficult. It's expensive, it's stressful, and so on. As it was before, I discussed that during my millennial exhibition. So there's like an embedded anxiety. This new paradigm that we live in embeds a social, it comes with a social anxiety that you cannot that you need to be aware of, and then
You can't attain
learn
of
how to
everything
navigate.
everyone has. Yeah.
Mhm.
No,
I think
I'm
it's
really glad
also
that you
because
guys
we're more
like
aware.
that. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions on YouTube or? Yeah, you can ask.
Sure.
I mean, do we have a little bit of time? But so if someone wants a question, or again, someone can just send me a message, and I'm usually quite chatty, and I love it. I love interacting with people, sounding ideas. I mean, Sarah can we discuss extensively on this or with Sam. Sam unfortunately is not here, 1 a.m. in Barcelona. But Sam, we spend Sundays 2-3 hours talking about this.
Maybe
Yep.
you can explain how people can reach out to you.
Yes. So the best thing to do, I think, is Instagram. So I'm quite active on Instagram, and yeah, just send me a direct message, and then we can just take it from there. I think that will be the easiest way through Instagram, or
what's your
just
handle?
on YouTube directly. You can also leave a comment, and I will certainly read it. And
What's your
and I
What's
don't
your
know,
handle?
start a conversation. On Instagram. Oh, sorry, I thought people were aware. Is at divide by zero collection. That's my handle on Instagram. At divide by zero collection. The whole thing. Yes. So I think that's the best way. And I personally, I do appreciate when people talk to me expressing ideas. And I have talked to many artists. This is how I eventually start interacting with artists, because we start floating on an idea, and then it goes up and up and up and up and up and then we come up into something that something meaningful, like Elaine or Stephanie or Sam. Sam now and I, we have a very strong, very good relationship. I mean, she's my friend. Or Mac and I. I mean, Mac is someone that I mean is very dear to me. I mean, I discovered her when she was nobody. And after so many discussions about what she was doing and so on. For example, on Mac, I mean, no, Sarah, you're in Hong Kong. If you have the time, go to the Sarah. Her show, same concept, but she's addressing something that I loved. She's addressing belief. So, and again, it's not the concept that is constructed, right? She goes. I mean, this is Mac, right? People that know Mac, she's hilarious, right? So you know that Mac has a number 2 on her name. Yeah. The whole story goes that she went to her Feng Shui master, and the guy told her, like, look, if you want to be famous and rich or etc., you need to add 2 characters onto your name. And she's like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, you need to put 2 more characters. She's like, being funny how she is. She's like, okay, so I just add a number 2. And then, so I found that quite hilarious, but then that kept her thinking. And then, like, okay, I put the number 2 and things are going quite okay with me now. Like, okay, I'm recognized, I'm selling well, I have a production, so maybe the fortune teller was right. But she's not believing, she's being cynical about it. And then she started making works about that. The overall summary of the work is that you can create your own belief. It's all self-constructed. Yeah. As long as you put effort into it, you can believe in it. So her I think the title of the exhibition is The House of Fortune. So he has these works about gold and all the typical symbol that are associated with fortune, right? But she's presenting that as a criticism, right? It's like, it doesn't matter. It's all about self-belief and self-effort. But I mean, people not necessarily won't get it like that. People just want to see that symbolism. So she's saying works that have gold bars everywhere, and I found that so funny. But this is the brilliance of Mac. Is we need artists that have that foolishness but seriousness at the same time in their heads to express something that is important. You read it today. Like, I have been researching a lot on scams and people, like all these scams and people, that the reason how people fall onto that, because they have this belief on making money quick or etc. And people are losing, like, I don't know what. I mean, when I found that when I saw her work, it was like really powerful, because I do see that there's a social there's a social situation that is happening on these false beliefs on get rich quick. Like I spent one of many, like, the love scams. I mean, it's just ridiculous what is going on. The sense of how detached we are from our own self awareness. So I think her work is this exhibition that she has is very powerful. So no, really,
I'd
again,
like to
no.
just say
Thanks for coming, really, guys. It really
Yeah,
means a
thank you
lot
for
to me.
having us.
Thank you
And
so much for the
and I don't know, for the same for the people in YouTube. Thanks for coming. Personally, it means a lot to me. The people attend to these talks, even if it's like 5 people. This is always a start. And it's not only me. I discuss this with all the artists. All the artists know that I'm doing this exhibition. They're very supportive. They gave me a lot of ideas, from Mac to Abdul to obviously Sam, Stephanie, Elaine, that I saw yesterday. So the guys actually do welcome, if you resonate, if the message resonates with you, they will actually appreciate it. Because for them, it's all about the message. It's not about the money or the fame. It's about the message. So this show and the works here were really done and written with heart in mind. So thank you, guys.
Thank
Those
you.
are really meaningful
you.
tours. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
If people want to